Most people are not afraid of confrontation. They are afraid of what happens when nothing is said. Silence strips away reassurance. It removes emotional safety rails. It forces the mind to face uncertainty without guidance. And when uncertainty appears, insecurity follows. That is why silence feels threatening. Not because it is aggressive, but because it reveals who depends on noise to feel stable. Silence is almost universally misunderstood. In modern culture, silence is framed as absence. Absence of confidence, absence of authority, absence of relevance. From childhood, people are trained to associate presence with expression. Students are rewarded for speaking up. Employees are encouraged to share. Social platforms are built around constant output. To be quiet is to risk being overlooked. So people talk. They fill gaps. They explain themselves even when no explanation is required. But what most people never realize is that this conditioning has inverted reality. Power is not expressed through constant signaling. Power is expressed through control of exposure. Silence is not the lack of something. It is the refusal to leak information. Every word spoken reveals intention. Every emotional reaction reveals vulnerability. Every explanation reveals where one feels insecure. Silence offers none of that. And this is where discomfort begins. When silence appears in a social environment, it disrupts the expected flow. There is no emotional confirmation, no verbal alignment, no clear position. The mind panics, not consciously, but instinctively. People are not unsettled because silence is hostile. They are unsettled because silence removes predictability, and predictability is the foundation of social comfort. At a psychological level, silence interferes with the brain's threat detection system. Human beings evolved in environments where social cues meant survival. Facial expressions, tone of voice, and verbal feedback signaled safety or danger. When those cues disappear, the nervous system activates alert mode. Silence creates a void, and the brain does not tolerate voids well. In the absence of information, the mind begins to generate meaning. It fills gaps with assumptions, projections, and imagined intent. This is not a flaw. It is a survival mechanism, but it has consequences. When someone remains silent, observers unconsciously project their own fears onto that silence. Judgment, disapproval, superiority, hidden aggression. The silent individual becomes a psychological canvas. This is why silence feels personal, even when it is neutral. There is also a hierarchy component. In most social structures, those with less power feel pressure to explain themselves. They justify. They seek approval. They manage perception. Those with power do not need to do this. Silence communicates emotional independence. And emotional independence is often mistaken for dominance. Not because silence always implies confidence, but because dependence is visible, while independence is opaque. The brain interprets opacity as potential threat. This is why people rush to fill silence with speech. They are not communicating. They are reducing anxiety. Consider a common social scenario. A group discussion unfolds. Ideas circulate. Opinions clash and overlap. Most participants instinctively attempt to position themselves. They speak to clarify intent. They react to maintain alignment. They explain to avoid misinterpretation. Now, observe the one individual who does not rush. They listen carefully. They pause before responding, or do not respond at all. They show no visible urgency to assert themselves. At first, this goes unnoticed. But as the conversation continues, subtle shifts occur. Others begin to monitor this person's reactions. They look for cues that never arrive. They wait for validation that remains absent. The silence begins to shape the interaction. Someone speaks more than necessary, attempting to draw a response. Another grows defensive, interpreting neutrality as judgment. The room becomes slightly tense, without knowing why. Nothing has been said. Yet the emotional landscape has changed. The silent individual has not taken control. Control has been assigned to them, not through force, not through authority, but through restraint. This pattern repeats across environments. In negotiations, silence pressures the other party to reveal more. In conflict, silence denies emotional leverage. In relationships, silence shifts dependence. Not because silence manipulates, but because it refuses to participate in emotional exchange. And systems built on exchange destabilize when one side stops feeding them. Philosophically, silence represents self-containment. It is the ability to exist without external confirmation. Most people do not struggle with silence because they lack words. They struggle because silence forces confrontation with the self. Without noise, distraction fades, thoughts surface. Uncertainty becomes audible. This is why ancient traditions valued silence. Not as mysticism, but as discipline. To remain silent is to demonstrate internal order, to show that impulse does not govern behavior, to indicate that identity does not depend on reaction. In contrast, modern culture equates expression with authenticity. But expression without restraint is not authenticity, it is exposure. Silence suggests choice. It implies that one speaks not because one must, but because one decides. This distinction is subtle but powerful. Those who fear silence often fear irrelevance. And beneath that fear lies something deeper: the anxiety of existing without witness. Silence removes the audience. And without an audience, the ego weakens. That is why silence feels threatening in a world addicted to attention. Silence does not intimidate because it is aggressive. It intimidates because it removes comfort. It reveals how much of social interaction depends on reassurance rather than truth. How much identity depends on reaction rather than substance. Silence exposes reliance on validation. It highlights emotional dependency. It reflects inner instability without accusation. Those who feel disturbed by silence are often encountering parts of themselves they avoid. Silence does not demand. It does not persuade. It does not explain. It simply exists. And in doing so, it forces others to confront what they bring into the space. Once this is understood, something shifts. You begin to notice that the most influential moments in life often occur without sound. No speeches, no arguments, no declarations, just presence, just restraint, just the quiet weight of someone who does not need to prove they are there.